Imagine being a PhD level expert at a company like Google, and you put in the years, your results are undeniable, and you're on paper the most qualified person in the room. But when it's time for the high level strategy meetings, you're not invited. When high profile projects are assigned, your name isn't even mentioned. So I recently coached an executive in exactly this position. She was brilliant, she was respected, but she was invisible. So she felt like she had a ghost title, all the responsibility, but none of the actual power. So she came to me and asked, is my career over here, or do I just need to work harder? And my answer was a flat no. Working harder is the trap that keeps you exactly where you are. In fact, for this executive, being the hardest worker was the very thing making her stagnant. Today, I'm going to share the exact advice I gave her, the same strategy that transformed her from an overlooked individual contributor into an executive vice president with a $100,000 raise. And if you feel like your performance is being ignored by top brass, well, this video is a roadmap to reclaiming your authority. I'm Christina Holloway. For over 25 years, I've coached senior leaders at organizations like Google, Meta, GE, and Oracle to architect their authority and navigate the high stakes politics of Fortune 500 businesses. On this channel, I show you how to stop playing small and start communicating with the presence that demands a seat at the table. So let's look at why my client, let's call her Sarah, was stuck. Sarah was a health sciences expert. She had spent a decade as a director, and she was the person everyone went to when things broke, but she was never the person they went to when they were planning for the future. So she was stuck in what I call the fixer loop. In my communication toolkit, I discuss how your professional presence is often defined by others before you have a chance to define it yourself. And because Sarah was so good at heavy lifting, her leadership saw her as an operational necessity, not as a strategic leader. So she was making the classic mistake. She assumed her results would speak for themselves. But in a complex corporate culture, results are just the baseline. Influence and presence are what actually move the needle. And one specific moment stands out. Sarah sat in a tri-party meeting with her supervisor who told her, if you were a man, you could be direct, but as a woman, you really need to be careful how you talk to leadership. So that's the moment most people would quit. But that is also the moment we started architecting her authority. We realized that her current communication style was actually giving up her power by making her appear grateful to be there instead of essential to the mission. So, we're going to talk about the three pillars of architected authority. But before we dive into the pillars, let's talk about why this happens to people like you and Sarah. You are likely an A player, one of those high performers I defined in my ABC 123 delegation matrix. And you're dependable, you're skilled, and you're motivated. But there is a dark side to being the person who can do it all. When you overfunction, you inadvertently train your leadership to stop thinking about your growth. You become a bottleneck of excellence. Think about it. They won't promote you because they are terrified of what happens to the department if you aren't there to catch the falling glass. So, this is what I like to call the fixer trap. You are so busy proving your value through output that you've forgotten to prove your value through strategic presence. So, in my communication toolkit, I discuss the importance of personal brand consistency. If your brand is currently the person who fixes everyone's mistakes, then that is the only role you will ever be offered. To move to executive level, your brand must shift to the person who architects the solution. You have to stop being the ghost who makes problems go away and start being the visible leader who prevents them from happening in the first place. And I have an excellent video on the fixer syndrome right here. Okay, so let's talk about these pillars. The three pillars of architected authority. Pillar one, breaking the fixer loop with the S.O.S framework. To break Sarah out of the fixer loop, we had to change how Sarah communicated with the people 2 levels above her. She was used to providing exhaustive details, thinking that data equals value. It doesn't. It just made her look like an analyst instead of an architect. We implemented my S.O.S framework, which stands for Situation Outcome Solution. So the next time Sarah was in a high stakes briefing, instead of a 20-minute status update, she gave them 90 seconds. She started with the situation. We've hit a bottleneck in the research phase that's threatening our Q3 launch. She moved to the outcome. If we don't pivot our resources now, We lose the first to market advantage, which is a $12 million risk. And then the solution. I recommend we reallocate the engineering team from Project B to clear this hurdle. I've already drafted a transition plan. The result, well, this was a surprising but refreshing and welcome change. For the first time, these VPs didn't see someone asking for help. They saw a leader who had already solved the problem before they even knew it existed. And that's the power of clarity. You see, clarity is power. When you remove the fluff, you leave no room for people to doubt your authority. Pillar two, the power of ask statements. But we didn't just stop at S.O.S., we had to fix her soft language. Sarah had a habit of asking for permission. Do you think I could lead that committee? Or is it okay if I sit in on a board call? So I told her, stop asking for permission to succeed. So we shifted to ask statements instead of do you think. She started saying, I've identified 3 areas where my expertise can accelerate this project. What do we need to do to get me assigned as the lead? Instead of, is it okay if, she said, it's clear that my team's data is the foundation for this board call I'll be attending to ensure we have real time answers for the directors. This isn't about being aggressive, it's about being intentional. Intentional communication ensures that every interaction you have moves the needle forward. You are not a bother to these executives, you are a resource they desperately need to make the right strategic choices. Pillar three, the leverage play. The counter offer logic. Now, we come to the part that most people find the most uncomfortable. It is the most critical if you want to break a cycle of being undervalued. So that's the leverage play. In my work with high achievers, I often see what I call loyalty blindness. You've been at the company for years and you like your colleagues and you're waiting for the organization to realize your worth and reward you. But as we saw with Sarah, her boss and her team were perfectly happy keeping her exactly where she was. Why move a high performer when they're solving all your problems for a director level salary? So, since Sarah was on the receiving end of stonewalling for her next promotion, I told her, you need to find out what the market thinks of you because your current employer has lost their perspective. And that's not the same as saying, you're undervalued, so you need to quit. When I told Sarah to start a LinkedIn stealth search, she was uncomfortable with that. She felt like she was being disloyal. And it's important to note here that she really liked her job. But here's the coaching truth. Your company is a business, not a family. They are making a market based decision on your salary every single day. If you don't know your market value, you are negotiating with one hand tied behind your back. So, the goal of this stealth search isn't necessarily to quit, it's to build your confidence capital. When Sarah received that diagnostic offer, her entire physicality changed. So, in the communication toolkit, I talk about nonverbal communication, how your posture and presence speak for you. So, suddenly, Sarah wasn't hoping for a promotion. She knew she was an executive director. That shift in internal certainty is what makes the counteroffer protocol work. You aren't asking for a favor. You are presenting a market reality to your employer. You are giving them the right of first refusal on your talent. Perspective matters. Essentially, this is what I call the LinkedIn stealth search. I instructed her to engage with a recruiter from a direct competitor, not because she wanted to leave, she loved her work, but because she needed a diagnostic offer. So when she got that offer from the competitor, it was for an executive director role with a significant bump. And most people would have just taken that offer and quit, but we used it as a leverage tool. This is the counter offer protocol for my signature coaching. We didn't go to her boss to threaten him, we went to him to consult with him. So Sarah used an ask statement that changed everything. She sat down with her boss, the one who was secretly terrified of losing her, and said, I've been offered an executive director role at our main competitor. I value my time here and the work we've done, but this offer aligns with the career path we've been discussing. Before I make a final decision, I wanted to ask, how do you know when it's time to stop fighting and just accept that the change needs to happen? Notice what she didn't do. She didn't say, match this or I quit. She framed it as a collaborative problem to solve. She turned her boss into her ally in a fight against the bureaucracy. What happened next is the part I'm most proud of in this entire case study. Within 4 hours, not days, not weeks, 4 hours after the conversation, her boss had contacted the skip level executive. The budget that they said didn't exist suddenly appeared. The promotion freeze that they claimed was company wide was magically lifted for her. And they didn't just match the competitor, they exceeded it. They created an executive director role specifically for her, skipped the senior director level entirely, and handed her a $100,000 pay raise. Why? Because for the first time in 10 years, the cost of losing her was higher than the cost of promoting her, and she had been undervalued. By using the S.O.S. framework to prove her value and the leverage play to prove her market worth, she forced the organization to see her as an architect of authority rather than a fixer they could take for granted. Sarah stayed at the company. She got the title, the money, and most importantly, she got the respect. She was finally in those board meetings. She was finally the one setting the agenda. And this is what happens when you stop chasing validation and start choosing your own value. You stop asking, am I enough? And start asking, what is the most strategic way to show them I am essential? Now, if you've been stuck for 3 or 5 or 10 years in the same role, while people with less experience are promoted over you, I want you to understand this. It is not a lack of talent, it is a lack of architected authority. You are likely doing too much heavy lifting and not enough strategic positioning. So here's your challenge for this week. I want you to look at your calendar. How many of your meetings are spent fixing things, and how many are spent architecting what's next? So, to help you make this shift, I put together my communication toolkit, which is the foundation for everything we discussed today, and you can get access at the link below. If you're ready to stop being overlooked, hit that like button right now. It tells the algorithm that this high level strategy belongs in front of more leaders like you. And I want to see you in the comments. Write the word visible if you are committing to using one ask statement in your very next meeting. Share what you're going to do. I would love to hear about it. And I'll be in there answering as many of your questions as I can. I'm Christina Holloway. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.